Hello everyone, this is part 49 of What If Naruto Learned the Secret of Shadow Clone, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
War is coming soon, we can't ignore that fact anymore. Jiraiya sat on the windowsill not far from Tsunade, who herself was sitting in her chair deep in thought. Paperwork for the moment done and set aside, she did her resolute best to in fact, ignore him. It doesn't have to though. That's the depressing thought. Tsunade held firm that there had to be a better option here. Onoki and A were both known variables. One was a stubborn old goat who was happy to play isolationist while griping about the good old days. While the other, while pig-headed and quick to anger, could be made to see the sensible side of things when pushed. One way or another she could probably either talk them down or exude some Konoha force in order to get them to back down. But united as they were, she doubted the usual tactics would work. They didn't just want the Uzumaki clan dead and Uzushio reduced to rubble, it was almost a visceral need for the two of them. And Naruto. He would raze both villages to the ground if even one Uzushio citizen fell. Jiraiya wasn't privy to her thoughts but had a feeling he didn't need to be. Word on the wind is that Iwa and Kumo are both making moves. It's small right now, Iwa has sent a scouting party to wave an Uzushio, but I have to assume Kumo has done the same. He shrugged when Tsunade turned a hard face towards him. Scouting is normal, yeah, I know. But not in these numbers. Either they're vastly underestimating Naruto or they just don't care. Or worse, they're attempting to provoke a response out of the Gaki. Waking that particular dragon would have the world redrawing some maps. Sighing heavily and leaning back to stare up into the ceiling, Tsunade finally nods as a hand comes up to rub at her temple. Look into it more thoroughly. I want numbers, plans if possible, their objectives. Something and anything to pass along to Naruto. If you have opportunities to sabotage, do so. As bad as her headache was getting, even drinking didn't sound fun at the moment. Shame that. Okay, I'll get right on it. Turning a tired eye out onto the Konoha skyline, the Toad Sage shook his head slowly. Keep up your guard, just in case. Konoha is still strong, but you never know. Kumo and Iwa might start getting ideas. He wouldn't put it past the pair to attempt to rush on Konoha if they felt like Tsunade's attention was being drawn elsewhere. They wouldn't try anything with us, not so soon after the summit. Tsunade was sure about that. Those two were happy to return things to the old way, and Uzushio was their target for now. They wanted to squash this new player quickly. If anything, we could probably stand to put a few roadblocks in their way. Maybe a hunter squad or two to root out scouts. Some Anbu to coincidentally make it to wave at the same time perhaps. No, that might be too obvious. Turning back to his longest friend and teammate, Jiraiya waved a lazy hand towards her. Remember Haim, both Kumo and Iwa have surprised us in the past. They could pull a fast one on us. He doubted they would attempt a full assault on Konoha, at least not right now with potentially Azu, Suna, and Kiri all allying to Konoha's side. Odder occurrences have happened in the past however, and he had to remind even himself that smaller villages had and still could be used as distractions. Uzushio fell to such measures and Konoha had been unable to help. Turning to argue the point, Tsunade is interrupted as Shizune opens the door and walks into the office. Well, I had assumed Kakashi had knocked you out for a few days yet. She hadn't said anything to Shizune calling off the day prior, nor her late start this morning. Good for the young woman, finally doing something for herself. Blushing and shaking her head as she carried a stack of papers and scrolls to Tsunade's desk, Shizune placed everything down and smiled. He is a dutiful boyfriend. Shaking herself, she motions down to the several-inch tall stack of papers. Duty and action reports. There have been a noticeable uptick in border incursions by Iwa shinobi recently. I wanted to bring it to your attention. Tsunade does her best to ignore the knowing look Jiraiya was sending her. Her long history with the man let her know instantly that he was probably mouthing, "I told you so," over and over. The ass. Thank you Shizune. I'll have revised patrol routes and missions for you to take down to processing before the day is over. Seeing her apprentice nod, Tsunade lets a grin stretch her face. So, am I going to lose you as well to Uzushio? Should I pack a bag? If Shizune did leave, Tsunade might just follow along after all. The real question was who would she hand off the hat to? Shikaku. Too lazy that one. She'd really have to think on it. Jiraiya was at attention while Shizune babbled for a moment. No, of course not, Lady Tsunade. We just. Tsunade waved her off. You should live your life. You don't have to take care of me anymore. Go start a family or something with that hot man of yours. You deserve it. Watching Shizune gather herself for a moment before she bowed deeply to her, she smiled as her longest apprentice left her office quietly. Well, there goes the best apprentice and secretary I ever had. Oh, what about that Haruno girl? Sakura. She was never a secretary. Though she was a stellar pupil. She was a damned good physician. Give her a few more years and she very likely would be coming for Tsunade's title. Guess I really am going to have to up patrols. Better to be safe than sorry. Which meant a long afternoon for her. Yay. Jiraiya nods, good to hear. I guess I'll get started as well and go get you what information that I can. Standing and stretching, Jiraiya had the window open and was already turning to leave. Tsunade coughed once, turning back to her paperwork though she knew Jiraiya's eyes were on her. Don't do anything stupid, alright? Stay safe and make sure to come home. Why was it suddenly so hot? Was she blushing? She better not be. Blinking quietly for a moment, Jiraiya opened his mouth to tease the Hokage but decided against it. This was something new. Different. I'll return, don't you worry, Tsunadeheim. And then he was gone, flying over rooftops and making for the main gate. Top of the list of things on his mind, he worried about the upcoming conflict. Depending on the actions of Iwa and Kumo, this would devolve into another great world war and he honestly didn't see how any of the villages could survive another one. If they attacked Izu outright, Naruto would retaliate, dragging the remaining villages into it. Never mind all of the minor villages between them all. Was this the time? Was the prophecy coming to a head soon? He wasn't sure, but perhaps it was time to look deeper into things beyond just the villages scouting each other. Behind him and left alone Tsunade's side, eyes on a border report but mind somewhere else. Rather on someone else. What are you doing, Tsunade? Yet another question she could never seem to fully answer even after all this time. Naruto would never deny that she was not one to sit still in one place for very long. Add on that Fu was the same way with both girls happily flying high above the Azushio oceans or exploring among the few forested areas that they had back home whenever they had the chance. Sitting inside of a slow-moving carriage as they traveled from the land of demons to the land of vegetables was becoming a real test in patience for the pair of women. They would bear it, of course, though with some grumbles. Naruto owed them both a major favor for this. Shien and Kyuki were right at home in the plush coach, going over notes as they considered their plans once they arrived in the neighboring nation. Outside they could just make out the out-of-tune singing of Sasuke while Taruho drove the horse-drawn coach on. Kyuki was focused as she pointed down among their notes. Should we perhaps take the economic angle? Bring up the increased trade within the Azushio Alliance's borders. Shien shrugs. It's not a bad angle, of course, we might have other problems to attend to first before we can cement negotiations. She gently toyed with her braided hair, Hinata convincing her to join her in the hairstyle. It was much more manageable this way. That perks up Fu and Naruto's interests. The mint-haired girl sitting up straight from where she had started to doze against the taller Naruto. Is there something wrong within the land of vegetables? Conflict meant she'd have something to do that didn't equate to just watching ink dry. Maybe she could practice with her Biju techniques finally. Shien nods. Well, as their name implies, the land of vegetables is a farming nation with a large economy and heavy exports. Troubling us at the moment is that my people received word that the vegetable daimyo was assassinated. There is a manhunt going on right now for his daughter. I believe her name is Haruna. Shien vaguely remembers meeting the other woman once or twice when she was younger but no more than in passing. A gathering of the local lords and ladies to mingle and network. Not much for a child priestess at that sort of event. Naruto leans back into her seat with a frown on her face. How bad must things have been for anyone to want to assassinate a daimyo? Kyuki is shaking her head as she considers her notes. Remember, there are plenty of people who would want to remove a daimyo from power and for multiple reasons. Some might want the daimyo's power for themselves. A nation doesn't have to be in decline for someone to consider doing such. Spring and Azushio Ninja had thwarted a few minor attempts on her life by now even. Such was a worry for a daimyo after all. Shion picks up on that. There's also the chance someone wanted to destabilize the country for their own ends. Like for instance, watching the country implode and then picking up whatever is left. Land itself is very valuable. Some other nation could be behind this, but Shion doubted such. This reeked of something poorly planned out. Maybe individual actors then. Or a botched job funded by an adversary maybe. Shrugging and eyeing the countryside as they rode on, Naruto wondered if they would get lucky and some bandits would make a play for them. Help her pass the time. All this thinking is your area of expertise, not mine. I'm just here to kick ass and spread terror into the hearts of evil men. Grinning and mentally imagining blowing up bandit camps, she wondered if Naruto would get mad at her for causing some light chaos around here. Women can be evil too, you know. Fu chimes in while Shion and Kayuki both roll their eyes as Naruto sighs but nods. You know what I meant. I don't know, have to make sure with you. I'm not Naruto. Oh, I know you aren't Na-chan. The accompanying leer from the mint-haired girl set Naruto chuckling and looking back out of the window. Fu could be such a brat when she wanted. Kayuki sighed and pointed at the pair. Keep your flirting to yourselves. We have a long journey ahead of us after all, and I'd like to finish it without entering major battles. So no jinxing us. Kayuki was pointing severely at Naruto, who began to whistle innocently. Just like Naruto, once the woman got going, she wouldn't be able to be stopped. Just saying we could use some excitement is all. But Naruto relented and relaxed, watching the scenery as Fu settled into her side to nap as she had been about to do previously. Idly wrapping an arm around the dusky-skinned girl, Naruto's grin softened into a softer smile as her fingers trailed along Fu's arm. Touch. Real textile sensations. Such a novelty. Honestly though, think we'll have any trouble with bandits? Shion shook her head. Not within my nation at least. Once we enter vegetable, it's anyone's guess. We don't know what the situation is over there just yet. That was the real worry for her at the moment. They were going into this blind, especially if there wasn't a ruling body to get into contact with just yet. They might have to continue on and wait for this situation to resolve itself first. The journey continued with little fanfare and lots of naps from the Fu and Naruto pair. Morning turned to afternoon and a little past that as the sun began to dip but still remained high in the sky. Eventually the scenery changed, much more lush growth and large farms and plantations began to fill their view, and soon enough aboard a town in which they could stop and rest. Finally within Vegetable's borders, the group decided some downtime out of the coach would be well received. As they stopped, Taruho was quick to see about the horses while Sasuke made to find food for the afternoon. This left Naruto and the others to explore the rustic town for a bit, promising to return to continue their journey within the hour. Hands in the pockets of her short black jacket while Fu wrapped an arm around her own, Naruto grunts at the noise and smells of what she was assuming was a trading town. Close to the border that it made the most sense. It smells. She was grateful today for combat boots and black cargo pants. While not exactly cold, it was chilly enough to bother her. Shion nods. It's lively. She had to remember that Naruto only recently acquired a real body. The young woman was still getting used to everything that entailed. Smells and temperature were apparently two areas she was having problems with. I wonder what sort of shops we can find here. Personally, she was excited. She had never had the chance to explore outside of her shrine. It made her a little giddy. Kayuki nods, taking in the hard-packed dirt roads, though wide and accommodating equal measure of foot traffic and work carts. It's a far cry from Azushio or Spring. She didn't mean to gloat, but it was hard not to when she was so used to more industrialized areas. That could be a potential selling point as well. Industrializing the area and bringing them up to par with the rest of the alliance. Fu giggles as they walk. I like it, it's so alive. Much as Shion was thinking, Fu didn't have many opportunities to explore other towns or nations. This was all new for her and just as culture shocking as it was to mingle about within Azushio. Naruto nods. Yeah, guess so. Leading the way with Fu as Shion and Kayuki follow along behind them, Naruto turns a violet eye back towards the pair. Should we grab a bite to eat, or rely on your servants for that? She honestly didn't care either way, but she was willing to help out more if Taruho was going to cook for them. Shion shakes her head. Perhaps a break for food would be good. We can see what the locals have to offer. Taruho and Sasuke deserved a break from time to time. Walking along the busy road as they were and ignoring many of the calls from farmer stands and vendors espousing their wares, it is Fu who is distracted first. By of all things, something shiny. You there. You look like you'd love something festive and unique. Why, my dear wife makes these necklaces that even young ladies from the capital stop and admire. A peddler was waving him over and Fu is the first to stop and drag a reluctant Naruto along. Kayuki and Shien giggle but follow along quietly. Oh come on. We just said we don't have anything to do, right? Tugging and giggling as Naruto came to stand next to the peddlers on the side of the road, Fu was all smiles as she leaned down to look at the assortment of random jewelry and baubles laid out on a rather worn cloth. Some of the jewelry was really pretty. Naruto sighed, we actually were talking about food, not pretty rocks. What use did she have for random jewelry anyway? It'd most likely be destroyed in the first battle they entered anyway. Explosions and fire were not forgiving to fragile things. Fu rolled her eyes as Shien and Kayuki stood off to her left to idle peruse the selection for themselves. Oh come now, sometimes you just have to have something cute and shiny for absolutely no reason. The leader of the little group, an older man with wide eyes and thick brown hair, was all smiles. Listen to the mint girl, she has good sense. Hand flashing out from within worn brown robes, Naruto notes hard and calloused hands. This man was a worker, maybe a farmer down on his luck. As the vendor tried to entice Fu and by extension Naruto into buying well-made but unnecessarily expensive trinkets, it is Shien who locks eyes with a quiet and severe-looking man at the back. Leaning against a cart with what looked like more of their supplies or wares to be sold, they stared at each other for a moment before something much like recognition enters his eyes. Blinking and wondering if somehow she had been recognized as the Land of Demons priestess, she's a little confused as instead the young man turns away, busying himself with unloading the cart. Huh. Next to her Kayuki nudges her, something wrong. Shaking her head and turning back as Fu purchases a knotted necklace of what looks like pearls and jade beads, she sighed, no, just. I thought I recognized that boy was all. Naruto's ears perked up. Was that danger she was smelling? Taking 2 steps to cross behind Kayuki and Shien, her voice is nearly a whisper, someone dangerous. Her eyes were already scanning the crowds around them while her senses stretched out cautiously. Having her own chakra to mold and use was still such a novelty to get used to. Shien shakes her head again, I don't think so. More like, a passing face. Someone I've maybe met once, but then never saw again. Humming, Naruto shrugs as Fu bounces back to her feet, if you say so. Happy with the money-changing hands, the vendor turns back to his group, Shun. Need another jade necklace. Watching the boy come back around the cart, Shien's feeling of familiarity returns. How would she have met some random peddler in the land of vegetables? She hadn't been around the normal populace ever before. But still, this Shun looked familiar. Naruto shrugs and motions for them to continue. Come on, I'm starving, let's find some food and get back to the carriage, we still have a long way to go. Naruto didn't miss that this Shun guy was doing everything he could to avoid Shien's gaze. Suspicious. Fu nodded and bounced back to her side, I'm thinking something sweet. Let's go find some melon. Or peaches. Think anyone here has baked any pies? She easily let Naruto lead her away, the group making their way back onto the path they were once on. Getting lost back into the crowd before eventually turning down another road and following their noses, Naruto has a moment to quietly make a clone and quickly transform it into a smaller bug form. Follow him. Watching the bug flit off, Naruto turned back to see the others all watching her with mixed looks. Just in case. Kayuki shook her head, you're too paranoid. Just like Naruto. At the least, she wasn't blowing anything up randomly, so there were no complaints. Yet. Naruto shrugged, pulling Fu tighter into her side, paranoia keeps us alive. Naruto was a firm believer in gut feelings. If Shien felt like she recognized that guy, then best to keep an eye on him. Never hurt to be safe just in case. You know, I can't really put my finger on it, but there's always just something about traveling through a land of fire forest that's just exhilarating. Ino was all grins as she, Hinata and Honoka traveled by tree towards their destination. They were currently on the hunt for a bounty from Kumo, a runaway who apparently murdered his team before running. The smartass was even making the job easy, leaving a trail of sightings and bodies in his wake. She certainly wasn't going to complain. Hinata can't help but nod, braided hair trailing behind her while her black jacket flared out behind her. The megafauna might be part of that. Nowhere else was there a chance you might run into giant tigers or bears. Land of Fire it might be, but Land of Giant Animals would be a close second for a name. Just behind Ino and Hinata, Honoka is deep in thought as she wonders over the information they have been able to gather. It's odd though, why would a missing nin from Kumo run to of all places Iwa? Though the others hadn't turned back to her, she could tell she had their attention. Of course officially the two villages aren't under an alliance, but it's pretty close. If Iwa catches wind of this guy, they're just going to capture him and send him back to Kumo. Lady Tsunade had let slip that something was going on behind the scenes with the two villages. Was this connected, or was the rumored alliance between them more fragile than Azushio suspected? Shrugging and bouncing from one tree branch to another, Ino didn't give the worry much thought. Most missing nin aren't the smartest of the bunch. I mean, who really thinks they're getting away from their village after killing their squad mates? Never mind all the rest of the trouble he was causing. He was going to make himself a problem for multiple villages at this rate. The timing is a bit concerning. Hinata chimed in, her own mind beginning to tackle the problem. Any Kumo ninja should know how things stand between themselves and Iwa. Why risk it with so many smaller nations between them? This is a newer bounty. He's listed as an A rank and the information available is substantial. Which in itself is slightly odd. Now that she was really applying her mind to it, she could see the caution Honoka was having. Ino angled herself to end up next to Hinata, face thoughtful, think this is a trap. Hinata nods slowly, possible, but the question is for who and why. It wouldn't make much sense if it was meant for them. This was a bounty from one of the public books, anyone could have taken this one, not just them. Honoka nods, think of the timeline. Pausing in her speech as they all have to divert around a larger than normal tree, skirting its large trunk, before they met up again on the other side so she could continue, the summit was announced, Azushio goes public, and this bounty drops. Considering our luck, I don't believe in coincidences. Seeing both younger women turn to her, she finally shrugs, that kind of planning wouldn't be just to capture some random ninja, there's a goal behind it. Ino snaps her finger, think about the location. Somewhere between grass and waterfall. Any chance this trap might be targeting their ninja? Taki were known for their isolationist ways and also their vaulted hero water. Some might be willing to go to such lengths for a chance to have that. Hinata nods at the idea, completely possible, which would mean we could be walking into a trap not meant for us. Something that Naruto would never let them live down, ever. Never mind that he would never let them out of his sight for the rest of his life if something happened. Thinking on it, of the major villages sooner wouldn't have taken this bounty, having enough issues keeping up with internal missions of their own now that trade and supplies have increased. Konoha as well wouldn't have, wanting to keep the peace as much as possible. Iwa obviously doesn't care if this ninja is running rampant near their borders and Kumo wouldn't send a full team this far away from their home, especially though the Land of Fire. Especially so soon after the summit. Catching on to what Hinata was thinking, Ino completes her thought, that leaves us. Azushio that is. Unless some random ninja decides to try and get lucky. Or a smaller village looking to make a name for themselves. Not likely but not impossible either. Honoka finally shakes herself free of depressing thoughts and levels firm looks on Ino and Hinata, if this is likely a trap, why continue on with it? It would be easy enough to turn around and return home. Take a different bounty even if they really wanted to. It wasn't like this one was important. Hinata pointed to the headband on her forehead, most likely if it is a trap for Azushio, they might have assumed Naruto would come after it with such a high rank. They wouldn't be expecting a full team that knows they're springing a trap. Ino has a grin back on her face, best way to avoid a trap is to know that it's there. It's reckless. Honoka sighs as Ino and Hinata grin at her, waiting for what they know she's going to say. She both loves and hates that she won't disappoint them. Obviously we're going to continue on, if for nothing else so we can make a fool out of whoever thinks they're going to get one over on us. Honoka taps her pouch on her lower back where a few special scrolls sat in waiting, unless of course we're being paranoid and there is no trap. Ino shook her head, pounding a fist into a flat palm as her blood sang at the chance for a fight. No, this has to be a trap. Don't jinx it. After this is over, I'm holing up with Naruto for a week. Honoka had her priorities after all. She still wanted to catch up to the lucky three back home. Hinata has a small smile on her face as she considers her own desires. That doesn't sound like such a bad idea. As if you don't sneak around whenever you can on a regular basis. Ino smirked as Hinata flicked a leaf her way. You're one to talk. Is there a surface Naruto hasn't bent you over back home? The kitchen table maybe. Ino looked up and really thought about it. No, wait, there was that time with Tayuya after everyone else went to bed. You degenerate. Honoka rolled her eyes. Can we not do this today? We can measure who gets more Naruto time later. Mentally she was sure that she and Karen had them both beat. Karen's basement lab truly gave them a world of options. And Naruto was rather good at trap making, so handy with rope. Ino just shakes her head as creepy giggles leave Honoka's mouth. Her own perversions aside, it would be nice to relax for a long while. Take up some work at home and stay put. She had been rather negligent about her personal garden and now the Uzumaki estate needed her own personal touch. Plus she had been meaning to survey some of their citizens recently to get a feel for how they felt about things lately. The longer she thought about it, the more she knew she'd never be bored staying home. You are rather driven, think you might want to settle down a bit and run a division or two. Hinata could see her fellow wife taking on more leadership roles back home much as Tayuya had. The blonde was the leader type and was very good with people. Most likely the Yamanaka blood in her at work. I wouldn't mind it. Something to keep me busy between helping with the kids and eventually having my own. Things are changing and maybe one day we won't have to take missions like this anymore. Ino was one to plan out, think about the future. She wanted just as much as the others for their lives to remain peaceful. Happy. You're certainly thinking far ahead. Hinata's voice isn't mocking, but sincere as they hop along. Maybe I should consider the same. While the Hyuga princess could fight, that didn't mean she necessarily wanted to. She would be just as happy at home with Naruto all day, every day. Surrounded by kids, in her love's arms. Safe, warm. It sounded like bliss. Honoka coughs into a hand to regain their focus. I think we all have been thinking about our futures and children more recently. Probably in no small part because of the others. We really should make some personal concrete plans now that the city is stable and secure. Plus they could establish an order to things. Best not to have kids all at once after all. As the forest thins out a bit and giving them the hint that they were approaching the border of the land of fire, Ino takes the lead as Hinata settles just to her right while Honoka comes just to her left. After this mission then, we will sit Naruto down and we'll all really get to planning things out. No sense in us all having kids at the same time after all. Could be fun though. Hinata giggled at Ino's disgruntled look sent her way. Fun and sensible are two different things. We're Uzumaki, do we really do anything sensible? Honoka and Ino looked at each other before looking back to the serene Hinata, Ino sighing and rubbing her temples. Do we count Naruto not having cracked the world in half as our most sensible thing? No, because he could probably do so at any time. Hinata's cheeky reply had Ino nearly tripping and falling to the forest floor below them. That's not a comforting thought. It's Naruto. We should always be a little worried about what he is getting up to. She still couldn't forget that little time bubble seal he had made. So terrifying he could be, the man they loved. It was another clear and beautiful day in Azushio and Naruto was taking his time to enjoy it while he could. Having dropped off a tired Sasuke with Sakura to watch over him back home, Naruto now walked along Azushio streets as he meandered his way back towards the tower. This at least would give him time to immerse himself with the people, feel the general vibe and wonder if maybe there were concerns he might be overlooking. Emotional sensing was probably much more useful than any destructive skill he had in the long run. Don't forget to actually talk to people. I would never. Naruto grunted as he considered what he would get up to next. Itachi was down, Kumo was still a worry but he most likely had some time to deal with them. That left Iwa. Should he pay Onoki a visit like he did knowing that old man, Naruto wouldn't be leaving without some serious collateral damage. Well, Iwa would be taking a lot of damage and that certainly would be damaging to his own quest for peace. Doesn't sound like such a bad deal, does it? Kurama had little love for the people of stone. Neither did Naruto in the end, but useless violence was still useless. Nah, it doesn't, but for now we can let them be. We have other concerns to get to. Kurama's chuckles filled his mind. Thinking too hard is going to give you ulcers. All of my wives are going to give me ulcers. Lost in thought as he had been, he pauses as he finds himself before the Uzumaki monument. Staring down into the golden inscription there, he smiles and offers a prayer to the fallen. Life had been good since leaving Konoha, and by this point he honestly could not ask for more. The city was thriving, his family was whole, and the future, while troublesome, looked bright. You could probably do with some extra sleep. That would take an act of the kami by this point. Sleep is a luxury I seem to be in short supply of lately. Shaking himself and offering a few quiet greetings to other citizens who themselves were offering silent prayers to the monument, he continued his way into the tower proper. The hustle and bustle of the reception level never failed to put a smile on his face, more proof that they were doing something correct here. Tayuya is probably more than a little pissed off, and I need to check on Tsunami and make sure she's okay. You do that. Call me when something fun happens. Feeling the great Biju go back to napping, Naruto idly completed a haration and found himself deposited in his office. Blinking and taking in the fuming redhead behind his desk while Karen giggled and Kabuto stood off to the side silently, he's blindsided by the mass of well-formed woman that spears him around the middle. Why were his arms full of mature woman? Oh my dear hero. Tsunami was laying his on thick, hugging Naruto tightly around the middle while she could hear Tayuya's teeth grinding behind her. Teasing was always worth the effort. Tayuya could feel a vein pulsing in her forehead. Welcome back, I'm guessing you and the others took care of Itachi. Somehow Naruto just knew he was going to get in trouble for this. Great. Yeah, Sasuke took care of his brother. Letting Tsunami up, his view was suddenly pulled down to see her smiling face. You aren't hurt, are you? Not at all. Say, can I borrow you for a day or two? Here Tsunami was all grins as she leaned in and needled a finger into his chest. I was so frightened when Itachi tried to do whatever it was to me. I just need some help relaxing and calming down. Big doe eyes locked onto his. You don't mind helping me, do you? Warning klaxons blaring in his mind, he did his best to ignore the ranting Tayuya yelling about old hussies who need to find their own men. Thankfully Karen was holding her co-wife down via chakra chains. Well. Here Naruto took a steadying breath before nodding resolutely. Anything for you, Tsunami. Bringing his arms around to hug the older woman tightly, he sighed as he could feel her giggle into his chest. You're going to get me killed. He knew without a doubt she was just teasing, but it was still going to set him in the doghouse one way or another. Pulling away with a smile, Tsunami shakes her head as a clone pops into existence next to her. Oh no, we wouldn't want that. Leaning into the clone easily, the older woman and overseer of Wave smirked. Don't worry. I'm not stealing you away, I really do just want you to visit. Inari misses you. Naruto nods. I promise, I'll come swing by. You better. And then she was gone, whisked away by a smirking clone. Naruto really hoped that clone didn't get him in any trouble. Turning to Akama Tayuya and a smirking Karen, Naruto starts for his chair as Tayuya begins to stand. What did I miss while I was gone? Easily dropping into the warm chair, he just as quickly pulls a surprised Tayuya back into his lap. Anything major? She molded easily into his chest, arms folding over his own as he held her around her middle. Tayuya shakes her head and warmth fills her. Was he always this warm? Nothing much. A few teams came in to drop off reports and Karen came up cause she was worried. Karen rolled her eyes as Naruto's gaze swept to her. Wow, is everyone going to out me today? Squeezing Tayuya lightly, Naruto finally let her up. Good to hear, go get some rest and take it easy. Standing and stretching her back, Tayuya turned hostile eyes towards him. That'd be a lot easier if you weren't taking every chance you could get to run off and play hero. But Tar-chan, it's part of why you love me. Seeing the fiery redhead blush and refuse to answer him, Naruto scored himself another mental point. Don't worry, how about tonight we, pausing mid-sentence, something vaguely familiar brushed against his senses. Huh. Instantly on edge, Tayuya and Karen both focused on the young Kage. Karen is already making to stand, trouble. They certainly hadn't felt anything, and the alarms weren't going off nor were any messages from the border team coming in. No, just, Homing in on the feeling, Naruto let a grin build on his face as he got a feel for the chakra that he could recognize that was not native to Azushio. Not a threat, I think, but something interesting. Sending out his chakra and senses in full, Kurama hummed awake. Smells like a fight brewing. I'm up. Might disappoint you, buddy. Naruto could tell whoever this was, wasn't far from here. He knew who this was. Turning back to the girls while standing, he makes a clone to man the desk. Go and relax, this is something minor. Tayuya huffed and crossed her arms. You promise? Absolutely. Looks like Onoki's granddaughter decided to come and visit. Seeing both of the girls' wide-eyed blinks, Naruto waves them off. It'll be fine. I just wanna make sure she isn't here to cause any trouble. If she was, it might just be perfect for him. Easy leverage to make sure Onoki didn't get any funny ideas. Don't underestimate the craftiness of old men. You would know, wouldn't you? Damn straight. Naruto paused as Karen came up to lightly hold his hand, turning to look down on her. I promise, it's no threat. Karen nods along. I believe you. Just, when you're done, come find me. I wanna have a talk, okay? Watching Naruto consider her for a moment with some nervousness in her heart, she smiles as he nods with a large grin. Will do, Karen. I'll be back in a flash. And then he was gone, leaving Karen with Tayuya and Kabuto. Tayuya easily brushed past Kabuto. Should I change my bet and place it on you instead? Karen scoffed and turned to follow the muscled woman out of the office to leave the Naruto clones to their work. Nope. I think it'll be Hinata. Damn woman did it everywhere. Curiosity peaked and mind clear, Naruto was walking down one of the main streets of a city branch arm towards where he could feel Kuretsuki's chakra. From the direction he had a feeling that she might be around the foodie district, which suited him all right. He was pretty hungry. Even still, his concern wasn't so much how she had gotten here, but why she was here. Did she come to start some trouble? Come to apologize? Or maybe something else? Kurama grumbled and started to doze back off. This is boring. If there isn't some screaming or blood, I'm going back to sleep. With the brat's luck, she probably wanted to jump his bones. Naruto nodded as he weaved through the crowd. You do that, big buddy. I'll let you know if there's anything interesting going on. See that you do. Walking along and enjoying the warm sun and peaceful atmosphere as he almost missed it when he gained a pair of followers who melted out of the crowd and joined him. Looking back, Naruto gave Neji and En disgruntled looks. Should I even ask why you're both here already? They were getting faster. En was grinning as his dark square glasses glinted in the sun. Lady Tayuya keyed us on the radio. Her orders were, unquote, don't let him go overboard, end quote. En was always happy to keep the Uzumaki women happy. It was an easy ticket to making sure he got fun missions later. Neji nodded along. She mentioned something about some woman from Stone. Naruto sighs but nods. Yeah. Kuretsuki, granddaughter of Onoki. Currently the Tsuchikage and one crotchety bastard. Naruto let things fall into silence for a few moments as the group made their way and the citizens parted around them with some happy greetings back and forth. If Naruto was out with guard, most assumed he must be on official business and made a point not to hinder him. Neji shrugged and folded his arms into his tunic's sleeves. Should we be on alert for anything? Shaking his head, Naruto didn't consider Kuretsuki a threat at all. Nah. This is nothing, just wanna make sure she's not here to cause trouble. Naruto turned a bright eye towards the other teen. Say, I've been meaning to ask, what's with you and that subordinate of yours? Kana right. Finally getting around to appreciating the female half of society. Or are ya holding out for your former teammate? What was her name again? Naruto hadn't paid as much attention to the rest of the Konoha rookies as he probably should have since he left. He'd have to fix that. Maybe have a get-together to celebrate once he handled business. Oh. Maybe make Fuu's wish come true and have a get-together with all of the Jinchuriki that he could find. Gaara would have fun with that. Neji was already letting his shoulders slump. Do you mean Tenten? No. She had more interest in Lee anyway. She was a good friend, nothing more. Here he paused as he considered the more outgoing and usually upbeat Hotaru clan member on his team. She certainly did have her good points. Faults as well. So many faults. Kana is a good person and means well. I'm not really sure if she's really interested in me or if it's just her teasing me. Ribbed the younger man with a grin. That wasn't a denial of your own feelings though. Come on, tell us, you got the hots for her or not? She is my clanmate and a valued member of my team. Right now my focus is on my clan and Azushio. I have a duty to uphold. Naruto rolled his eyes. That's probably the closest we're going to get to Neji admitting he has feelings for someone. Here he lazily waved a hand over his shoulder. Just remember, Neji, a man's duty is to build a legacy. That includes something to leave behind. Ah, they were close. Was she at Ayami's? That sure seemed to be the case as they continued down the sidewalk past other wide-windowed restaurants. The smells around them certainly had his stomach rumbling now. I will consider that. Neji quietly decided that he would as well since the advice was coming from Naruto. He wouldn't be making any decisions anytime soon, what with tensions with the other villages so high at the moment. But it was good to consider the future. Was stretching his arms out over his head, before finally calming down and rotating his shoulder. Just make sure to take it easy while you can and don't end up with a wife like mine. She'll run you ragged every chance she gets. Granted, he really couldn't complain. Chino deserved some younger siblings and apparently he had put in some good enough work. Hey, Keiko had been on cloud 9 ever since the doctor had given him the good news. Naruto seconded that thought. You said it, I'd kill for some real sleep sometimes. These women will be the death of me one day. Sighed, I both envy you, and really don't. Story of my life. Pausing as the chakra signature is close in front of them, Naruto sighs as he stares up into the bright red and white sign above them. Just his luck. Ichiraku Ramen, Ayami's cute spot. Shaking his head, Naruto opened the glass front door and grinned wide. Yo Ayami. Hope you're all stocked up cause I'm super hungry. Smiling just as wide as other patrons cheered for their leader, Ayami was already waving a ladle towards him. I'm always prepared for you, Naruto. Have a seat, you want the special. You know it. Naruto quickly took in the space. Finding Yugito at the bar was a nice surprise, but his target was the one he was interested in at the moment. Sliding between a few tables, Naruto and his shadows settle in at a table next to Kuretsuki and a man he didn't recognize. Had an interesting blue mask though. Man, I was ignoring it but now that I'm here I really am pretty hungry. Neji nods, dropping into a seat across from Naruto while comes to sit next to him, leaving the seat next to Naruto empty. When is the last time you ate, Lord Naruto? Naruto had to think about that. He skipped breakfast, lunch was interrupted thanks to Itachi. Did he have dinner last night? No, he decided he wanted to have bath activities instead. Shaking his head and sighing, Neji sure hoped Naruto learned to take better care of himself one day. Maybe this is the best course of action for the afternoon then. You need to eat. Yeah, what are you, my babysitter? Do you really want me to answer that? Do so at your own peril. Naruto's eyes glinted with obvious mirth, at least until a very feminine hand trailed along his shoulders and a shiver crawled up his spine. I didn't do it. I'm awake. Down boy. Yugito was all grins as she settled into the seat next to Naruto, her cup of tea the only addition she placed down in her new place. You most certainly did, my lord. Yugito leaned forward, one elbow on the table and a cheek resting in the supported hand. Still all smiles. I have a favor to ask, if you don't mind. Naruto flatly ignored the grin was shooting his way and the more disapproving look Neji had on his face. They had no clue, none at all. Sure thing, Yugito, what do ya need? He had promised to make sure she was settling into the city as well as she could. Best to give his best efforts towards that. Well, Ino, Tayuya and everyone else have been trying to help me find my own way, and I thought finally that I had something I wanted to do. So, here she again trailed a finger down from his shoulder to his hand. Think you could get me a job? Blinking as that was not the direction he thought this conversation was going to go, Naruto nodded easily. Sure. What are you looking to do? I want to be your secretary. Secretary, yes. Yugito held his gaze firmly. Ayami was right, this was fun. I'm sure I can work something out. Naruto mentally sighed. He was placing this as Ino's fault. Yeah, I can make something happen. Wonderful. Leaning back and finishing her tea, Yugito stood to leave. I'll be waiting for the good news then. Waving goodbye to Ayami who was focused on a growing pile of bowls, Yugito then leaned down into Naruto's ear as she passed him to give one last whisper. And please, Lord Uzumaki, come visit me again. My kitty certainly won't mind another showing from you. Feeling the man freeze in place, she giggled as she stood straight and left the eatery, hips swinging for the fun of it. Taking a deep breath and smiling up into the sun, she decided today was most certainly a beach day. Maybe she'd stop and pick up a book from home first, or maybe some art supplies. Sighing and dropping down to the table, Naruto grunts as En begins to laugh long and loud. You just can't help yourself, can you, Uzumaki-sama? It's not my fault. You're the Azukage, it's all your fault. Neji's deadpan response cut right into Naruto's heart. He didn't mean for any of this to happen. Honest. En leaned back as Ayami floated their way, placing down bowls in front of them all with a bright smile and a wave of thanks. The ramen certainly looked extra good today. Snapping his chopsticks, he gave his thanks and began to dig in. Ayami herself tapped the young leader on the forehead. The Uzumaki clan is bound to grow pretty quick at this rate, huh? Come on, big sis. No teasing. I have so little of my sanity left. Of course, Naruto wouldn't argue that it was a hell of a lot of fun. Nor would he trade it away for anything in the world. Well, maybe some sleep. Shaking himself and grabbing his own eating utensils, he turns his head to see Kuretsuki doing her best to edge away from him and prepare to sneak out. So, Kuretsuki, seeing the woman flinch and keeping a smile on his face, he continued on as she turned back towards him with a weak smile of her own. What brings you to Azushio? Nothing crazy, I hope. He'd be pleasant so long as she could be. Ayami's was sacred ground after all, and no one disrespected the ramen. Not in his presence. Oh you know, just sightseeing. Nothing serious or anything. Laughing and trying her best to appear non-threatening, she cursed her luck. Here was her target. The maelstrom himself, the Azukage. What a fake. But he was also surrounded by enough ninja that even she would have some trouble. No, she had to get him alone. I could use a tour guide, think you'd mind showing me around? Grunting and eyes hardening a tad, Naruto shook his head. Sightseeing, huh? Well, the tower's entrance level has tour guides and information I'm sure you'd love to dive into. If that's your thing. Naruto took a slurp of hot noodles, savoring the complex mix of flavors and spices before swallowing and pointing his chopsticks at her. But, need I remind you what happened in hot water? You try anything here and that will seem like a morning breeze compared to what I'll do to you here, got it? Ayami really was going all out on this special ramen. Was that tuna? What was that spice she added in? It was divine. Sighing and deciding to step in as Kuretsuki began to sweat, Obito shook his hands in a placating manner. Toby thinks Kuro isn't a bad girl. She'll behave, Toby thinks. Toby has been trying to fix her attitude, but you know how it is. Takes time. Be the doofus, inconsequential, a non-threat. That was the best move for now. Naruto was all smiles again, nodding sagely. Yeah, I can agree with that. Changing someone as hard-headed as Kuretsuki must be a full-time job. You have my condolences. Thank you, I need it. Kuretsuki was flushed as she nearly vibrated in place while unable to speak up to defend herself fully. I'm not that bad. She'd make sure to give Naruto or Earth Spike enema when they fought. Shrugging and decided to write him off as no big deal, Naruto begins to dig into his meal. No sweat in the end. I don't hold grudges against those who recognize they did wrong and are working to change themselves. So here, I can give you a chance. Naruto held a hand out towards her, one that she tentatively took and shook carefully. See, no harm no foul. He wouldn't mention the subtle Horatian tag he just placed on her. Better safe than sorry. Yeah, I appreciate it. Kuretsuki felt like she had to literally force the words out of her mouth, but if it prevented a fight from breaking out, she'd take the offer for peace. Ayami was already swinging back, taking Naruto's suddenly empty bowl and replacing it with a new one. Still, she felt like teasing material was right in front of her and couldn't help herself. You seem awfully familiar with this one, Naru-kun. Another girlfriend of yours. She doesn't look like your normal type. Girl was a little of the small side, but hey, maybe Naruto's interests were changing. Shaking his head quickly, Naruto held up his arms in AX formation. Nope. All wrong. Just someone I ran into during one of my missions. He'd have to tell Ayami the full story later to clear up the confusion. Him and Kuretsuki nearly made him hurl. Kuretsuki nodded. There's no way I'd be interested in this guy. I need someone much more manly. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that. Me. Not manly. Somewhere in the city he got the distinct feeling several women all sneezed at once. Mentally, however, he can feel Kurama beginning to get nervous about something. Hey partner, sense something. So, can I get you to promise not to get upset? Naruto nodded almost instantly, beginning to attack his newest bowl while En and Neji watched on with something akin to disgust and horror. Sure buddy, what's up? Idly he noted that Kuretsuki and this Toby character relaxed once they knew he wasn't going to start a fight. Good omen that. I feel a familiar chakra signature. Mentally shrugging again, Naruto didn't see the worry there. And, how old are you again? I'm sure you've run into countless chakra signatures by now and they've got to start feeling similar from time to time. Maybe it's Kuretsuki, you remember I fought her right. He wouldn't put it past Kurama to forget fighting the Iwa princess. She really wasn't that memorable. Both in fighting ability or looks as far as he was concerned. Kurama shook his head. Number. Not this one. This one is seared into my brain pretty deep. Naruto paused at that as Ayami was working on teasing Neji while En egged the young man on as well. Okay, now I'm nervous. Who is it? Mentally he chuckled as Ayami needled the other teen about his not-quite girlfriend. Was Neji blushing? Okay, so again, don't get upset. You're really starting to worry me buddy. Sighing and decided to get on with it, Kurama steels himself. This is a chakra I haven't felt in 16 years Naruto. Oh, so someone you and my mom fought then? Wait, hold on. 16 years ago. His mom would have been pregnant with him by then. Very pregnant. Not so much fought, as Kurama didn't get to finish as Naruto's eyes tracked to Toby, senses latching onto the older man as if to dissect him from every possible angle. Who is he? See, this is why I tried to get you to promise not to get upset. Kurama. Who is this Toby guy? Naruto's focus was now solely on Toby, food forgotten. Sighing and praying that this didn't go south right away, Kurama nodded his head. Meet Obito Uchiha, the man that ripped me from your mother as she was giving birth to you, and then threatened to kill you as you were only a few-minute-old babe. Freezing fully in place, eyes cold and latched onto Toby, Naruto gained the curiosity of Neji and En, both of which were turning to look at the curious Toby as well. Naruto's chakra was deceptively still, mind whirling in an attempt to focus on one emotion. He was failing, but he was working through them steadily enough. Rage. Check. Curiosity. Dwindling. Rage. Double check. Neji leans forward to try and snap Naruto out of it. Lord Naruto, is something wrong? Maybe this pair was a danger after all. He subtly had his hidden hand on his radio, ready to give an alarm signal to the ninja office at a moment's notice. Obito catches on that Naruto is watching him. The look in the teenager's eyes was one he didn't like, at all. I think it'd be best if Toby and Kuro got to moving. We have a lot of places to see, people to visit. That sort of thing. Kuretsuki shrugs. What's the rush? Things are good, we're good. Why leave? Oblivious to it, she turns to check out Naruto and the sudden silence that seemed to be falling on the restaurant. Oh, those eyes of his were like ice. What did Toby do to this guy? Thanking Kurama mentally, Naruto leans forward just a tad. Say, what did you say your name was again? His eyes stayed locked onto Toby, there was no question about who he was addressing here. Toby is Toby. Just a drifter, no one important. Just a drifter huh? Naruto takes a breath, counts to 10, and releases it. It doesn't help. His blood is still on fire. Odd choice for the killer of my parents. Must be nice. That admission silenced the rest of the conversations in the room, all eyes turning towards their direction. Carefully, slowly, Obito raises his hands in a warding motion. I think you have the wrong person, friend. Truly, we are not here for a fight. Oh, I understand wholeheartedly. I certainly wouldn't want to fight me either these days. But you know how it goes. Some things just can't be forgiven. Standing slowly, Naruto looms over the pair as Kuretsuki looks from him to Obito and back in confusion. How had things changed so quickly? Naruto had only a slight frown on his face, but his eyes. They promised death. Pretty hard to fool an ancient Biju when it comes to chakra. And yours is oh so familiar. Looking around and seeing that the room was now completely focused on him, Obito sighs and realizes that one way or another, Naruto had figured out who he really was. Shame. I don't think this is a fight you want, boy. Faster than thought, Naruto has a fistful of Obito's tunic, you know. I just don't think you have a choice in the matter. Chuckling and shifting his eye into the Sharingan and then the Mangekyo, he felt himself begin to phase out of sync with this dimension. You'll find I have plenty of choice, you little. Just as suddenly as he started to slip away, Naruto's hand began to glow a yellow color and latched onto him more firmly. What? Naruto has a mad grin as he hoists Obito to his feet. Oh, you have no idea how long I've been waiting for someone like you to show up. Time for you and me to party. And then they were gone, a flash, the last thing denoting their presence. Idly all of the ninja present could hear the radios chime in their ears. An alert had been issued. Seeing all eyes turn to her, Kurotsuki held up her hands quickly. She knew better now. I surrender. Neji was frowning as he stood, lamenting his noodles that would be left and wasted, probably the smartest choice you could make. Ayami is already walking over, transferring Neji and En's food into to-go containers. Will Naruto be alright? Idly she noted several of the ninja patrons finishing their meals and leaving quickly. Must be an emergency then. Neji nodded as En slapped a suppression seal on Kurotsuki and threw her limp body over his shoulder. This is Lord Naruto. If anyone will be okay, it is him. He better be at least. Neji was not dealing with Lady Tayuya's anger alone. Not again. B. From the forests of the Land of Fire to the Great Plains of Grass Country, Hinata, Ino and Honoka easily made their way into the border town affectionately called Last Stop. Nestled at the junction of the borders between Grass, Waterfall and Iwa, it was a good place to rest, stop and resupply before entering the more rocky terrain of Iwa. All three young women were feeling a different sort of way as Hinata led them on and Ino took in the people around them. It wasn't a feeling of fear or unease that had her somewhat jumpy, but all the same there was an energy in the air. Something she didn't like, not one bit. Thinking on it, she considered that she had felt this way ever since they had crossed over into Grass. Maybe they were being watched. We should make this quick. I feel like I'm being watched. Ino's voice was quiet as they walked along the sparsely populated road, Honoka bringing up the rear while Hinata led them closer and closer to the town center. Honoka hums and scans the crowd. I don't see anything out of the ordinary, the people seem happy enough as well. Hinata sighs, it's mostly civilians here. The largest chakra signature here is our mark. Here she sighs and releases her Byakugan. He wouldn't be moving anytime soon by the looks of it. Man matches our target's description is just ahead in a restaurant, place is pretty empty. Ino sighed, well that's not suspicious at all. Honoka leaned forward to tap her on the shoulder, remember when I said this was reckless? Yup. And I remember when you agreed to push ahead as well. Can't let you two have all the fun now, can I? Ino and Honoka share a laugh as they continue on, the dusty road and gloomy overcast sky adding to the general mood of the place. Hinata shrugged, we aren't being followed, if that's your worry. She had made sure to keep an eye on the surrounding area often. Ino pulled alongside Hinata and nudged her in the side, how's your seal? Hinata shrugged, same as yours. Naruto only made sure to check and triple check them before we left. He had been insistent that they all learn the Hiraishin before they could leave and learn they did. Now each of them capable of it in an emergency. This far from home it'll probably suck us dry to get back all at once, but if anything looks sketchy it's the better option. Ino agrees, we aren't that hothead. We bail if it looks like it'll be a bigger fight than we planned. Ino shook herself as Hinata led him around a corner to an emptier street and internally sighed at how quiet this place was. Let's put him down quick and get out of here. I wanna get as far away from Iwa as we can. Naruto's worry and concern was beginning to bleed over into her. Honoka was already circulating chakra within her, chains at the ready inside her, I can have him wrapped up and subdued in seconds. Thrilling as this was, no point in needlessly bringing on more risk than they already had. Within a minute Hinata leads them to an out-of-the-way restaurant that none of them can read the name of, the sign next to the door rather worn and having seen better days. Ino led the way, squinting in the dim interior and walking past the surprised and sleepy waitress. Honoka easily paid her a few ryo to keep her quiet before catching up to the others, where Hinata was pointing to a lone man in the middle of the seating area, most of the tables empty even though it was near lunch. Their target was of slight build, black hair and dark clothing that would normally make him easy to lose in a crowd if not for the band of armor around his middle and the slashed-out headband on his upper left arm. Daisuke of Kumo, just who they were looking for. Walking confidently and calmly up to the man, Ino was all grins as Hinata flanked him on one side and Honoka came around to his opposite. You were rather easy to track down, Daisuke. You that confident no one was going to come after you. Sliding into the chair opposite to him, she wasn't worried that he didn't even flinch and continued with his meal. Looking at the blonde in the black skirt and tank top sporting orange leg and arm warmers, Daisuke scoffed and finished off his soup. Must be a cold day in hell, they're sending kids to track bounties down now. Placing his bowl down and lazily leaning back, ignoring the Hyuga and the redhead on either side of him, he kept his eyes on Ino. To what do I owe the honor of 3 young Azushio ladies bothering me today? Smiling and pointing a deceptively delicate finger at his chest, Ino was still feeling confident. You made quite a mess back home. We're just here to take you in and make sure you pay up. One way or another. Humming and nodding as if understanding a great problem at long last, Daisuke leaned forward to smirk at Ino. I think it might be a real bad idea for you to be here. See, maybe you should run along, before something bad happens to you. Ino snaps her fingers, Honoka's chains appearing from her hands and winding around Daisuke's body quickly and efficiently. Yeah, we're not too worried about anything bad happening to us. You should worry about yourself. Daisuke began to chuckle, prompting a raised eyebrow out of Ino. You're certainly unbothered by all this. Wanna clue a girl in on the joke? Ino did her best to ignore the goosebumps rising all along her skin. Unable to move or mold chakra by this point, Daisuke flicked his head towards the door. You'd be better off running home and sending back that super strong husband of yours. Might save you in the long run. Seeing some surprise enter the younger girl's face, Daisuke couldn't help but chuckle some more. You might be able to get away if you leave me, but you certainly won't be making it out of the area alive so long as you have me. What have you done? Hinata had a chakra-laden finger pointed at his temple, Byakugan activated and scanning the area. Little ol' me. Oh, nothing. I was just told to wait here and enjoy a happy little lunch. Daisuke's smirk grew even more as Ino turned to look at a worried-looking Hinata. Put him down. Ino barely finished her sentence before Hinata knocked Daisuke out, Honoka easily lifting him up and sealing him away in one of Naruto's special transporting scrolls. What's the damage, Hinata? Ninja, a lot of ninja. Town surrounded. Ino nodded and stood. Then we need to go. Now. That would be a bad idea. A gravely voice answered them, prompting all 3 women to turn towards the door. Onoki was walking his way towards them, alone but with a cat caught the canary grin on his face. I wanted the brat but got some bait instead. It'll have to do. Ino and Honoka closed ranks with Hinata, the smaller pale-eyed girl still scanning the surroundings. I can't see him. Oh girl, I've been fighting Konoha for a long time. You Hyuga are an easy group to trick once you start thinking about it. Opening his jacket a bit, he showed off several seals lining his clothes. But enough about that, just come with me quietly, you hear? I want your man, not you. Ino put on a grin, fingers twitching and wondering if they could all Horatian fast enough. You'll have to get in line, we all have dates with him first. Ooh, feisty, I'd expect as much. Onoki stopped half a dozen paces from him, hopping up and sitting on one of the empty tables. Also, he won't be flashing in here and saving the day anytime soon. I made sure to have a barrier put up to prevent such pesky thing, really, and pretty chakra intensive, but worth the effort. Onoki was going to continue, but a large man ducked his way into the restaurant. Decked in heavy samurai-inspired armor in red and brown, a wide-brim red hat on his head, Onoki was all smiles as Han joined him at his side. Han, sorry but your opponent isn't here. The steam user shrugged, adjusting the portable furnace on his back with a sigh. No matter. I've waited this long, I can wait a bit more. As the 2 men talked to each other, Ino edged a bit to look at Hinata. Have you tried to jump? Hinata nodded as she connected subtle chakra strings to Honoka and Ino. He wasn't lying, that barrier is up and doing its job. We'll have to run. Unless the idea forming in her mind could work out. Coming forward just behind Ino, she coated a finger in chakra and began to draw on the other girl's back. Stall for a bit. I have an idea. Onoki turned back to face them. Look, girls, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Sit, relax, we'll send a messenger and clear all this up quickly. You don't have to die. Onoki's eyes trailed to the taller redhead. You though? Sorry, but we'll be taking you into custody. Uzumaki blood is so valuable. Honoka sighed, stepping forward primly. Why do this? Didn't you all agree to a tentative peace at the cage's summit? Why break that so quickly? She wanted to keep his attention on her, not sure what Hinata was up to but hopeful it was a plan out of here. Because that boy is upsetting the balance of things. Order must be maintained. Onoki sniffed and raised a hand to pat it against Han's side. The Jinchuriki are tools to help maintain that order. That the yellow flash's brat thinks he is above such a duty is his own fault. Such a hellspawn that I can't wait to see snuffed out. Ino's body was tense but she did her best not to make any sudden movements. So you're going to start a war over your feelings about him. Now, do you really think it'll end well once Naruto finds out about this? Oh, don't you worry, we have something special in mind for him. Seems to have worked on you easily enough. Onoki's plan had been simple enough. Lure the Azukage or someone close to him far away from Azu, trap them in a wide area barrier and sick the gobi on him. Simple and effective. If he had to commit hundreds of ninja to the plan, well, so be it. Hinata finally finished, leaning around and giving Onoki the finger. Well, this has been entertaining, but we should be leaving now. Chakra added to the seal on Ino's back. Han makes to jump towards them, a superheated kunai already leaving his hand before the world around them warps and shifts. With a heavy pull that was not normal for the Hiraishin, all three women were gone, and a regular bubble of space carved out of the floor and ceiling where they used to be. Han sighed, coming to a stop and turning back to his cage. What now, my lord? Onoki sighed but shrugged, taking the setback for what it was. We have the contingency in place, so your job is the same. Make for the next point with the barrier team and do not stop for anything. Han bowed deeply to Onoki. Yes, Lord Tsuchikage. And then he was gone, dust kicked up from his high-speed shunshin. Left behind, Onoki frowned and stared down into the empty space where the girls used to be. If nothing else, I've confirmed it works. That's enough for me. Standing and groaning at the stiffness in his back, he chuckled as he walked back outside. All this excitement, I almost feel young again. Far away back in Azushio, Hinata, Ino, and Honoka were unceremoniously dropped in the ninja reception office. Around them there was organized chaos, a hurried energy that Ino picked up on immediately as she picked herself up off of the floor and waved off a passing ninja who tried to help her up. What's going on? What did we miss? At the desk and issuing minor orders, it's the green-haired Kian who leans forward to answer her. Lord Uzumaki issued an alert. No danger as of yet, but all of the Azu ninja forces are at stage 3 readiness at the moment. Here she paused and took in the three women. Are you okay, Lady Uzumaki? Just fine, it was just a long jump from grass. Rubbing her sore backside and considering her low chakra, Ino turned and helped Honoka to her feet. But we caught our bounty. Happen to know where Naruto is? We have some news for him. She wasn't ready to hear the litany of, I told you so, from him, but better that than being stuck captured by Iwa. Kian shook her head. No, my lady, no one can find him at the moment. Ino nodded as she and Honoka turned back to the struggling Hinata. Hey sis, you okay there? Burned through too much chakra. Sorry, breaking through that time-space barrier was a bit of a hack job, so my chakra isn't the best right now. Standing and holding a hand to her midsection, Hinata stands enough for the others to see the blood pooling in her hand and down her front. Looks like that Iwa Jinchuriki got a lucky hit in. Try as she might, she couldn't focus enough to heal herself. Something was going haywire with her chakra right now. That barrier breaker hadn't been the most stable work she had ever done. Sorry. And then she was down, the pain overwhelming her. Ino was at her side in an instant. Hinata. Two hands pressed down on the wound, careful not to rip the kunai free for fear of increasing the bleeding. There was already so much blood. Honoka was already turning back to the reception crew. Get me Karen on the radio now. We need to get to the medical level. Chains out, she was already gathering up Hinata and making for the bank of elevator doors. Just their luck, chaos and problems and no Naruto around. What else could go wrong? The blonde-haired Mihoshi called out to them as Ino trailed after Honoka and Hinata. Lady Ino. I received word that a hostile ninja is being brought in that was captured just before Lord Naruto left. What should I have done with them? Mind frazzled but knowing she couldn't do anything to help Hinata right now, she tapped Honoka on the shoulder once. Take care of her, K. Got it. Take charge here. And then she was gone with Hinata, elevator door closing behind them. Ino nods once before turning back, focusing on what was in front of her for now. Who is it? Kuretsuki from Iwa. Apparently she was here with a man calling himself Toby. She surrendered peacefully. Ino's grin is feral as she nods and walks forward. Send her straight here, I'll be having some words with the woman myself. This was just perfect. Anything else? Mihoshi nodded. Now that the alert has been issued, we've spotted a large chakra source heading our way from the land of fire. Not close enough yet to confirm who or what it is, but the size suggests someone of at least major cage levels. Ino is frowning as she strides forward, doing her best to ignore Hinata's blood on her hands, or a Jinchuriki maybe. It's possible, Lady Ino, you'd have to get down to the barrier team to confirm for sure. Ino nods, then that's where I'll be. I'll reset my radio and you can reach me on it from here on. When it rained it poured. It couldn't be the Iwa Jinchuriki, he was much too far away to have made it this far already. Kumo then. Or someone else. Naruto better hurry it up and get back, they had an emergency on their hands. Switching her radio back onto home channels, she keyed in, this is Flower Garden to Silken Fist, can you meet me in the barrier room? Gentle Death is injured and we have a guest to entertain. Ino waited for a few breaths as the chaos unfolded around her, ninja coming and going from the balcony to continue rapid patrols while keeping the general populace out of the loop. Tayuya's voice was firm when she finally replied, I'll be there. What's Gentle's condition? Unknown. There was more silence before Ino heard a tired sigh, I'll meet you in the basement and fill you in. Roger that, I'll bring our friend. Ino turned as there was commotion at the balcony entrance. En and Neji were there, carrying a bound and knocked out Kuretsuki. Her day just got really busy. Again she keyed her radio, Flower Garden to Barrier Maid, you up to date yet? Karen's voice answered her near instantly, I'm already on my way to medical, I'll have her secure and stabilized, don't you worry. I'm not worried, she's too stubborn to die from something like that. Ino released a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Hearing Karen was already on her way helped ease her nerves as En and Neji walked up to her. Let's go, I have some words for her. B. Naruto quietly watched the farmland float by as they continued their journey in their carriage. Nestled safely on the comfortable seat, she didn't mind Fu relaxed into her side while she chatted away with Kyuki and Shion. Even with the peaceful atmosphere and not a single bandit in sight, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Something from Naruto was bugging her. She could tell he was angry. More enraged than he had ever been in his life. Why? Kyuki could tell that the resident blonde ninja was bothered by something and tried to gain her attention. Naruto. You seem off. Is everything alright? No. Naruto's quick and terse answer silenced everyone, and she sighed and shook her head. Not something here. It's Naruto. Something's wrong and he's very pissed off. Shion raised an eyebrow at that information. How can you tell? We're so far away, you're not getting updates from your radios, are you? Shrugging, Naruto turned to face them all. No, just a feeling I have. Something in my chest. Fu nudges her with a comforting smile on her face. Maybe it's one of those twin links. You know, one twin stubs their toe and the other one feels it from across the house. Thinking it over and considering her more than extraordinary origins, Naruto shrugs. Anything is possible, I guess. If what she was feeling was from Naruto, she didn't want to even consider what could be going on back home to have him this angry. Best to focus on the here and now. More importantly to us right now, that shifty guy I'm keeping a watch on isn't far from us. Their caravan is a few minutes behind us. Kyuki feels a seed of nervousness grow in her chest. Are we being followed? Naruto shakes her head. No, they're not following us. Just happen to be going in the same direction. My clone is feeding me information about them. Naruto turns lazy eyes to Shion. You're from around here. Know anyone by the name Kikunojo? Or Yurinojo? There are two guys with the caravan with those names that following this Shun dude. Humming and looking up as she thinks about it, Shion snaps her fingers abruptly. If they're who I think they are, they're the former bodyguards of the vegetable daimyo. But to be among commoners this far from the capital. Maybe they're on the run. Kyuki is already nodding her head along with the idea. Wouldn't be too much of a shock if they were on the run. Daimyo killed while under their watch, they've most likely been shamed and cast out. Or maybe, Kyuki turned to Shion. What are the odds they're protecting someone else? Pretty high. Kikunojo especially was the type not to give up on his mandate. His loyalty was to the daimyo to a fault. For him to be out here, it has to be for a reason. He's the type that would have rather died than live on after the daimyo fell. Shion turns to Naruto. Can you instruct your clone to gather any more information on who they are with? Perhaps it is someone close to the daimyo. Someone we can meet with. That was why they were here, to build ties and relations with the rest of the smaller nations around the land of demons. Fu sits up straight as Naruto does the same. Maybe we'll get lucky and they know where the daimyo's daughter has run off to. Fu wanted to have the best outlook possible for this trip. Kyuki frowns at the thought. That would be dangerous. It'd mean she'd have been exposed all this time and in danger. We'd need to make contact with her, quickly. Naruto sighs and motions out the window. I can make another clone, send it back to ask some questions. Well, it wouldn't hurt. Kyuki watches as Naruto nods and does as she said, making a clone that saluted them and ran off back the way they came. Could they get lucky this time? Behind the coach carrying Kyuki and the others, Haruna disguised as Shun sat huddled among the cart and their wares while Yorinojo drove the horse pulling them and Kikunojo walked alongside them calmly. Do you think our message has reached Konoha yet? It's been so long and we've gotten nothing back yet. Kikunojo patted the side of the cart with an understanding look. My lady, I'm sure they've received it by now and have a team on the way. We'll just have to make do with what they send us. With our lack of funds, they might not have seen us as a priority. Haruna sighed. Ninja, nothing but trouble. Her mind still focused on the Janin that had been pursuing her all this time. The three brothers continuing to edge ever closer to finding her. We have to do something. Perhaps we can plead our case to someone else. Maybe even Azushio. I hear they take missions like ours. Kikunojo hummed and thought that over. Azushio was a newer nation but had plenty of political power behind it. The daimyo of Spring apparently running things for them along with a few other high-profile names. But with what little funds we have, how could we even get a mission to them? Haruna leaned back and looked up into the cloud-filled sky. It's all beginning to feel hopeless. Like we have no options left. She looked down to the cheap clothes and useless trinkets around her. Maybe this pauper's life is what I'm meant for. Yorinojo looked back to his lady and shook his head. Nonsense. You'll see. The team from Konoha will show up, and we'll carry out our plan for dealing with the Janin and their followers. You'll regain control and we can save our country. Kikunojo chuckled. You're in high spirits today, Yuri. Ah well, those women from earlier have me inspired. So beautiful, and the tall one, she was a dead ringer for Yuki Fujika's. Haruna giggled, as if that famous actress would be all the way out here. Smiling and turning her gaze to the countryside around them, Haruna's good mood dims. I don't want to meet my end so soon. Yorinojo thumps a fist against his chest. Don't you worry, my lady, our duty is to protect you, with our very lives if necessary. You shall make it through this. I'd rather it not come to that. You both deserve to make it through this with me for all your hard work and dedication. Haruna turned her eyes to the road, missing the happy blush on Yorinojo's face as he too turned back to watch the path. Ahead of them she spotted a shorter blonde woman, dressed in black shorts and an orange tank top with a short black jacket over such. It was one of the women from the town. Was she not part of the other group then? Letting the cart pass her, the Naruto clone easily stood and paced along beside them with a carefree grin on her face. Wonderful weather out today, isn't it? Slightly on edge, Kikunojo makes sure he is between this woman and Haruna. It is a pleasant day out today, isn't it? Seeing the girl nod and continue to smile, Kikunojo held out a hand towards the cart. Was there something in our stock that caught your attention? It's odd to see someone wait like this for us. Was she a scout working for the Janin? Had they been spotted finally? Keeping her hands in sight and lacing them behind her head as she walked, the clone kept her smile firmly in place. No number. I was just asked to deliver a message, nothing too crazy. Seeing all three flinch, the clone mentally made a note of it. On behalf of the Spring Daimyo, Kyuki Uzumaki, and the Land of Demons Priestess Shion, and further as a representative of Azushio, I'm wondering if you know the whereabouts of the daimyo's daughter, Haru. A finger was held out in front of her, silencing her as Kikunojo's face darkened as his eyes darted up and down the road. Please, do not say her name aloud. While this was fortuitous, they were still on the run and needed to be careful. You say you're from Azushio. The spring daimyo is with you. Watching the girl nod easily, Kikunojo could feel a bit of hope enter his chest. Thank the thousand. Are you out here because Konoha's passed the mission along to you instead? Maybe that was why a Konoha team hadn't made it to them yet. The clone shakes its head. No. It's actually Shion who thought she recognized you and she wanted to be sure. The clone looks up and down the road and takes in their threadbare appearance. Do you require assistance? Sighing heavily as that should be obvious, Haruna sits up and eyes the violet-eyed girl. Is that not obvious? Yorinojo sighs and holds up his hand to display a zero sign. We're sorry, but we don't have much money right now after the coup. We can pay you back after we regain control. And the Naruto clone held up a hand while shaking her head. Don't worry about the money. It was Kyuki's plan for this trip to meet with the daimyo and hash out potential trade and alliances. So helping you will help us in the long run. The clone pointed a finger further ahead, over a hill that they were beginning to climb. I'll let the others know and stop the coach we're in. We can link up and negotiate things properly. That all right? Kikunojo nodded and bowed his head. That is more than all right. We shall meet up with you momentarily. Kikunojo's eyebrows raise nearly into his hairline as the girl salutes him before puffing away in a cloud of smoke. A shadow clone. It was so well made that he hadn't even noticed. Intriguing. Yorinojo looks back towards him. Think it might be a trap. If it is, it's a poorly thought out one. To name drop Kyuki and Shion in the same sentence wouldn't make sense. Kikunojo sighs and looks to Haruna with a small smile. It is in the end your decision, my lady. We can turn around and head back the way we came. Make a run for it. Shaking her head, Haruna was done running at this point. Either she was telling the truth, or we speed things along. I want to save my people. Now, Haruna did wonder about why the spring daimyo would be all the way out here to begin with. What could vegetable have that spring couldn't produce itself? Why involve demon country? So many questions. At the least, I'm sure we can find a way to use this. Kikunojo nodded and motioned for Yorinojo to continue. As you say, my lady. It was a waiting game now, but that small part of him still had hope. Things were on the upswing finally. Dumped harshly on the ground and rolling to his feet, Obito rips his mask away as he faces Naruto. He quickly takes in the cavernous space, the single skylight high above them, and the rows upon rows of seals that were lighting up on the walls. Before he had a chance to phase out and leave, the entire space was bathed in that same eerie yellowish light that Naruto had exuded earlier. Of course, Uzumaki shenanigans. Your mother would be proud of you, if she had lived. What sort of cave was this? The ground was jagged and yet brittle. Was this cooled lava? Naruto grunted, cracking his knuckles and leveling a glare at the older man. You're just digging yourself a deeper hole, you know that, right? Rolling his eyes, Obito takes a deep breath to steady himself. He could still salvage this. It didn't have to end in a fight. He could make the boy see reason. None of this is necessary. I want what you want after all. A world at peace. Real peace. Obito pointed at the black-clad Naruto with a smirk. Besides, fighting me is just going to exhaust yourself. When you do, I'm just going to walk out of here. Naruto shrugs, eyes never leaving the one-eyed man. You say that, but I bet that dimensional phasing trick of yours isn't working too well, is it? Naruto began to pace to the right, Obito doing the same to keep distance from the teen. I'm going to be upfront about this. This isn't going to be quick. Nor painless. You are directly responsible for taking away my parents. For how shitty my own life had ended up. So I'm going to turn you inside out. Possibly literally. Chuckling and producing a kunai, Obito shook his head. I've been around a long time, boy. Seen things, done things you couldn't even hope to imagine. I was your father's student. A true master of the Sharingan. I've been pulling strings and urging the world along a path that I saw fit. You think you can stop me? Armies can't even touch me, boy. Obito spit on the ground at Naruto's feet. You certainly are your father's son at the least. That same confidence that borders on arrogance, especially to think you can take me on alone. Stopping in his tracks, Naruto turned Rinnegan eyes towards Obito and savoring the surprise in the older man's eyes. You just keep on talking. His body burst into golden light, chakra coating his form easily. Usually this would be the part where I would try to talk you down. that I'd give a damn as to why you've done all of this. But today, right now, 5 clones burst into existence around him. Like I said, I'm going to turn you inside out. And you should know, I'm never alone. Kurama. Yeah, Naruto. Let's rip him apart. Finally. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.